We can roll with it. Even in this mode, it works well.
Okay. All right. So sorry, it's giving me some error messages here, but so going into the introduction again, let me reset here. So my background, I'm most recently I came from market research. I was working at Dynata, which a lot of you on this webinar I've worked with in the past in regards to loyalty within the travel vertical as well as the finance and retail sector. My background mostly is in entrepreneurship. I've had several startups, and my real passion has always been in the nonprofit space. And right now we're working with over 100 different nonprofit organizations within very different verticals, whether it's humanitarian, social enterprises, as well as just social impact in general. And my approach today, going into it, is to really just keep this high level. And the goal is to just really go into just the basic strategies of how you can get through COVID-19. And what that means is the strategies that we can implement and come out of. A couple of things that we want to highlight is that I took a very data approach in regards to what we're doing here. And I've also, I'm sorry, I keep getting these error messages on my screen. All right, there we go. So I've also researched and attended about 20 different webinars in the last 3 weeks alone, and really just kind of high level summarized everything over so I can share just some of the nuggets with you as we go through this. And the approach has been tracking all of the different news and highlights that went through it, and the methodology is data approach balanced through social psychology. So as we get into it, I just want to say the first one here. The current state, the bad. So I think before we can go into planning and the future of everything, we need to look at the current state, which is the bad and the good. This meme is something I share pretty often, is that as marketers, we are responsible for what we put into the market, and we need to be careful and mindful of what's happening. Some of the data highlights that I want to share is that 43% of consumers believe that brand emails and communications are sounding the same and are losing their impact right now. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind as the messaging that we're putting into the place is depreciating. Another really important data point is the average email unsubscribe rate has doubled in a lot of verticals, and this is pretty alarming for a lot of us as marketers, because this is an asset that we should absolutely be protecting, and this is something we should keep a close eye on. Another really key fact that I want to reiterate throughout this conversation is that 48% of government websites, 48% of consumers are saying government websites, they don't trust it. And that's really alarming in the sense, like, this is the organization that we should be relying on the most when it comes to news and updates. Obviously, trust is a huge issue all across the board, as well as social media, trust factors only being as high as 11%. So we'll talk a little bit more about trust as we move along. Some examples in the marketplace to look at right now is what not to do. I'm not going to go into the specifics of these brands or these marketing campaigns. These are just 3 I selected randomly to share with you. But I think we have to be mindful. We have to be adaptive and make sure that we're making the adjustments that we need to make as we go along. One thing that I do want to highlight with these campaigns is that majority of these campaigns continue to run towards the mid of February till early March. So companies and brands, whether it's through agencies or not, they were continuing to run these messages. And I understand that a lot of us have predetermined advertisements, creatives, as well as commitments that we've planned months, if not years in advance. But we have to be able to make the adjustments, and we need to react and respond in real time. So on that note, let's go to some of the good. One highlight is Disneyland and Disney, the brand itself, and its omni-channel marketing is winning all across the board. And this is one just piece of news that I want to highlight, is that the happiest place on earth is somehow through all of this, as they're getting hit hard in regards to numbers, are still making headlines. And I think that's a really good example of what it means to be omni-channel and omnipresent. Another is going into some of the key highlights and data. the average email read rate is actually up to 24%, and it's actually been climbing pretty steadily. So this is in counter to a couple slides ago where I was sharing that 43% of people were not trusting or believing that the impact of the communications that they're getting through email are effective. But that doesn't mean that they're not reading it. It's actually quite the opposite. Your messages are being heard, but are they effective? Are they adding value is a real question here. The other side of this is that through all of this, people understand that business needs to go on. Only 8% of consumers should say that brands should stop advertising. And that's the data that we need to really hold on to, because I'm going to reiterate this over and over again in this conversation. The worst thing that we can be doing right now is nothing. So we need to find our voice and our tone and our position through all of this, and really put people first, and as well as like knowing and trusting that people understand that business needs to go on and it needs to continue. And final note before I move into the next slide is that there is always a silver lining in every situation. And even as, you know, as doom and gloom as it is now, with all of the situations and the changes that are happening, there's highlights and nuggets, like foster pets are finding homes. Some shelters are seeing numbers as high as 700% in regards to adoption rates and application rates. And on a personal level, I go running near my house, like, you know, the parks and the wildlife here is flourishing. And it's, you know, looking at those silver linings and trying to tell those good stories. Going to the next slide, what to learn from. There's a lot of good, really good examples and case studies. These are just 3 that I'm highlighting here, and we'll go into a few more as we go along. But I really, really enjoyed what Hawaiian Airlines is doing from a branding perspective, from a messaging perspective. They're really sticking to their roots, their local community, and the impact that they're having. Obviously, a lot of airlines and travel industries in general are taking a huge hit. And I think it's, you know, the reassurance that they were able to offer aloha in everything that we do. Hawaii is our home, and just sticking into the local impact that they can have. Another one was Verizon, just really simple and direct and effective communication. It doesn't have to be all jazzed up. We're here and ready. They know exactly where their product and their where they fit into this. Safety first, something for you, and communication. And another one is Chipotle, which is a loyalty program that I really enjoy and like. It's not always about something critical. If you give from what you have, and if for Chipotle is if it's guacamole, give guacamole. Give what to your customers, what your most loyal customers, what they value the most. And I thought that was a really simple and great example of how they made adjustments as changes were happening. So how to get it right, and where do you fit in through all of this? And I really like this quote, and this kind of really sums it up. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think a lot of positioning and strategy right now really needs to just go back to the basics. And that's serving human needs and effective communication. Again, that's human needs and effective communication, because I don't think it's about anything else right now, but where we as human beings stand from an emotional and social psychological level. And I want to go into a really good indicator of where we're at in the marketplace right now, which I believe is directly related to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All of it really comes down from a marketing perspective is position and timing. If you guys are familiar with this, it's a social psychology theory where as we are in crisis, there are hierarchy and needs that we have, from the basic needs, from psychological needs to self-fulfillment needs. And there are about 5 different core categories where physiological needs and safety needs are the most basic things, and this is where toilet paper, it really comes into play, right? Like where panic happens and people are stocking up on food. And then from there, there's this gradual progression that goes into social self-esteem and self-actualization. And I think you need to ask yourself is, where does your product and your company and organization fit into this? Obviously, if you're an essential brand or product provider, then you're going to be, and you're the original essential product that has a huge spurt in regards to sales and everything else. But as we go along, like travel, where do you fit in? And for me, I believe that's in self-actualization. And where do we fit in right now in the current space? Identifying where you fit in and through this process is where you can start your planning in regards to positioning and timing and where you're allocating your ad dollars and budgets. So this is something I really highly recommend in looking into in regards to your core products. So going to some examples of how you position yourself through these needs is omni-channel. You know, that's the one channel that's been seeing incredible numbers all across the board. And again, my point to omni-channel is that you need to be omnipresent, meaning that no matter where your position is in the hierarchy of needs, you need to be relevant throughout the entire process, that when it comes time to fulfilling your product and where people are engaging and purchasing it, that you are relevant and you're top of mind. And some of these brands are examples that I feel like they're doing a really good job. Starbucks obviously took a huge hit when it comes to their retail sales and everything that they're doing. And they're finding a lot of creative ways to stay relevant. Aside from the daily struggles that they're having, their marketing has really geared up. And they've one highlight that I want to share is their Starland project, which they launched about a few weeks ago. I think it ended actually last week, where they engage their users and on a daily basis because they know where their position is within their product. People go into their retail stores on a daily basis. That interaction with their brand and what they offer is a daily behavior. And in order to maintain that, this game literally encouraged their users to come in on a daily basis and just engage through a fun way. And they literally just gave their product away. So they're planning for what's next. When this thing passes, people will have stars and credits to go back into that routine of engaging with their brand and product. Another example was Visa had a huge budget with the Olympics, and obviously with the Olympics being canceled, they were able to really pivot fast. They used those ad dollars, those relationships they had with the athletes to run a campaign, a social impact campaign focused on social distancing, as well as staying safe, washing their hands. And I just thought that was a really fast and creative way for them to adjust to the times. A couple other brands and social distancing as examples of is McDonald's, Audi, Volkswagen, Nike, and the list kind of goes on. And the reason I shared this one is that there's a lot of brand marketers. There was an interesting article talking about like, hey, this is actually diminishing to the brand, and I completely disagree with that. I actually think these efforts is when it counts the most. It's when you put people first and the needs of the people before your brand and your product. And that ultimately leads to the next one is, what is the goal? Planning for the future and everything that we're doing is to build trust. And this is what I love about loyalty. This is where I've dedicated my life to loyalty, is that loyalty goes both ways. Building trust, and the word loyalty literally means support and allegiance. So serving our communities, serving your customers, that's what social impact is. Everyone has this misconception that social impact has to be working with a charity or doing some type of charity work. Social impact starts with serving your community, and from there, the good will resonate to everything else. And trust is going to be the real plan and is the key objective in everything that we do. One example that I love to share with a company that I believe is just really doing it right is Everlane, which is a e-commerce, privately held e-commerce line. And one objective that they initiated in 2017 was 100% human. And this was a social impact cause that really became a core value within their brand. And this is an example of a brand that's doing it right and how they were ready for a situation like this. Once COVID-19 hit, they automatically launched this program and they already had the foundation within their network and their community, and it just really took off. And the impact that they're having, and I believe the lasting effect that it will have on their brand and ultimately their sales and their business and everything that they're doing, it's going to be amazing to see and track over the years. So another thing that I want to really hammer in is that trust is not something new. It's not just because of COVID-19. This is a market research survey through the Edelman Trust Barometer, where consumers are saying that companies can have both profits and social impact. This data has been around and it's only getting stronger, and to position yourself and your marketing to have it is planning for the future. So let's go into the actual planning. These are memes that I really enjoy. Unless you're Chuck Norris, you cannot do all of them. We really need to pick and choose our battles. And the same is this, we can't be everything to everyone. It's the same when it comes to social impact and obviously loyalty and building trust. And I think one thing to also keep in mind is that the little things really add up, whether that's bringing your own bag to the grocery store, which you can't do right now during COVID. So just to make that clear, but it's adding these little things that ultimately reassure and build brand equity. So what are some of the specifics that I recommend as we go into this? Don't react, respond, and let's think holistically and plan for the future now. And some of the 3 key strategies that I've been sharing with a lot of our brand partners is that it needs to be loyalty first. We need to focus in on our current and most loyal customers. Obviously, if you're in the travel space, new user acquisition is not the key here. A lot of the dollars that we've already allocated or have budgets for, we should go and added a new user acquisition, because it's the people that are most loyal to us. We want them to remain with us throughout this process, and obviously to be the champions and the advocates for us afterwards. Another thing I highly recommend in regards to strategy is to look internal. The way we treat our internal company and the people within it is a direct reflection of how we will treat our customers and the marketplace. And I know this is not easy when there's massive layoffs and cutbacks, but our marketers, we have a social responsibility to really tell the stories, right? Let the heroes be the everyday people within our organization and highlight those things and tell those stories, because ultimately that leads to planning holistically. Again, our social responsibility is what leads to social impact. As we plan, we need to think about how this strategizes and goes into the tone and voice that we have, not just today, but 6 months, years, or 2, 4, 5 years down the line. And that leads to my next point. I know that all of us are just overwhelmed and drowned in COVID news and making sure that we are pressure testing the messaging that's going out and just responding to all of the updates. But the world is still spinning. Remember that there are other things happening in the world, and there are other ways that we can have social impact and positive messaging. This is a calendar I share with a lot of our clients where, these are some of the potential campaigns and awareness days that we can really latch onto in regards to social impact and how we can promote positivity, positive engagement, whether on a digital marketing level or on a social impact level, on the grounds level. So just remember, again, to strategize and plan ahead, and don't forget to invest into tomorrow. So wrapping it up with a couple examples and final thoughts. These are some recent campaigns that I saw that I was just adding onto last night. And Airbnb, let's try something new. Don't be afraid to try something new and different. If there's ever a strategy or initiative that you want to test out on a social impact level as well as on a digital level, this is the time to do it. And you can start small and build into it, but definitely use this as an opportunity to really build brand equity and to test different markets. Another real key highlight is the tech sector has been shining through this entire thing, whether that's donating masks. Every big tech company that you see here, Facebook, Apple, and Salesforce also launched grant funds for small businesses within their local communities. I highly recommend you see how they're kind of managing that and messaging that through their marketplaces. Another one was something I just saw 2 days ago. Marriott Bonvoy just launched a new marketing campaigns to their loyalty program, taking a virtual vacation, keeping calm through the process in regards to travel cancellations, as well as just simple things like making your favorite cocktails that you enjoy at luxury hotels at home. Just really adding value to where their users are at and how they can be a part of where everyone's going through right now. So to sum it up, the worst thing that we can do is nothing. We have to stand for something, and we need to be relevant now and today. in order to come out of this ahead. And the three frameworks that I would love for you to walk away with is that serve human needs, deliver loyalty by serving. Wherever people are at, wherever you're positioned in regards to the hierarchy and needs, be aware of that and serve that, and communicate effectively. Tread lightly, as we do need to respond to things that as they happen and change, but maintain your voice and tone. And make sure you identify what your voice and tone is if you have one. And if you don't, please invest into that. And another thing, because all of this is consistency builds trust. Establishing your brand equity is being present and developing the relationship through hard times like this, because ultimately this too shall pass. How do we come out of this? Planning ahead is that how business will not be the same after this. What's going to change and what will be the new normal are the tones that we set, and we'll either be helping creating the new normal, or we'll be subjective to whatever it is. And to come out ahead is that you have to set the tone and the pace within your vertical and where your human needs lie. Thank you. I know that was a rough start in the beginning with technical errors, but I would love to open it up for questions at this time.
No worries. Thank you, Andy. That's great. It's great information as well. And while we look to see if there are questions that'll come in the meantime, can you tell us just a little bit about Do Good Points and what you folks do and that is perhaps relevant to the talk today?
Yeah, so Do Good Points, we work with, one, obviously on the charity side, we work with hundreds of different charity organizations. We've launched our own Do Good Against COVID campaign, where 100% of every dollar that we raise from digital fundraising and digital exposure goes back to charities on the front line. On the brand partnership side, we work with brands, whether it's in the travel industry or the tech sector, to do co-marketing. So social impact marketing, whether it's on Save the Air Day or Do Good Against COVID, but really building out their program in regards to social impact, working with the nonprofit sector and just delegating that process.
That's great. And do you buy points from programs for rewarding or?
Absolutely. So our organization is very different in the sense that the way we do digital fundraising is we want it to be a sustainable way to do business. So every brand partner that we work with is on a business level. So we have an ancillary revenue program where we purchase points, whether it's from airlines or hotel partners. When someone makes a donation, we reward them with those points and we purchase those from our partners. Okay, great. And again, just to the members of the audience, reminder that you can use the questions tab to type in any questions you may have for Andy. Andy, in the meantime, can you share some examples of what airlines or hotels may be doing to demonstrate social responsibility during this crisis? That's a really good question. I think first off, we have to recognize that obviously this is a hard time for travel, and just like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs applies to us on a human level, it also applies to brands and companies, right? Brands and companies have to make a lot of adjustments and really figure out how they're going to come out of this and stay in business. So I think now that we're coming out of that initial reaction of survival mode, I see a lot of brands are now really stepping up. Like that Marriott email just went out earlier this week. And I think it's always better late than never. If your brand is not doing something, it needs to step up and make sure that it's addressing the needs of the community now. So I thought that was a really good example. Hilton, something simple was like they released their cookie recipe that went viral online, which I thought was a really nice touch as well. Some other things, Airbnb has launched new test initiatives in regards to products that they're doing on a digital level, as well as airlines. Airlines are really stepping up, and Tom, you were talking about this earlier in regards to their loyalty programs and offering reassurance. Southwest had a viral campaign. I don't know how much dollars and cents they put into it, but there was a photo of healthcare workers flying out, and that went viral. And again, I think those are the small things that really add up to add brand equity. Yeah, I think those are great examples, and I think some of the partners are lining up to do things with each other as well. So you look at American Express and Hilton joining up to donate a
million rooms to first responders, to healthcare workers. That's just one of many examples across the industry. I think that's fantastic. And you know, when you showed that hierarchy of needs, to me that should be posted on the wall of every loyalty program marketing meeting, as your members, the program members are at various stages of that hierarchy of needs. Some people are still at the bottom, right? Some people are still freaking out and buying canned soup and toilet paper and stocking up, right? But others have moved forward. We all move at our own rate for our own reasons, and so it's important as program people to be sure we're reaching out to the members where they're at and hitting them for what they need at that time, which is exactly why I thought that chart you showed was fantastic. Where do you think we are? Where do you think we are at a macro level in terms of that hierarchy as a let's say a loyalty member base?
I think I 100% agree with you, and I think it's just a matter of where you're at geographically as well, right? You know, me being here in San Francisco, California, you know, our market here reacted a little bit faster, but obviously when you look at Florida or something, it's, you know, so that hierarchy and need is different. I think in general, on a macro level, I believe that we're kind of just coming out of the basic needs and going to the psychological needs, which is going from like the toilet paper to, so I did a lot of research right now on Google search. Google released the search results, as well as a couple of e-commerce analytics companies showing results in regards to what people are looking for and purchasing on Amazon right now. And a lot of it is like workout and fitness things and self-esteem needs, right? And another really important data point I think to keep in mind is that luxury is seeing some of the highest conversions that it's ever seen on a digital scale. And people with money still have money. So they don't have those kind of, you know, safety needs that, you know, those were satisfied. So now it's the self-esteem needs and the reassurance. So by purchasing luxury products, it gives them, you know, it gives them that satisfaction that they need. And I think a lot of us, I don't know how many people on this call will agree, it's like, we're really reaching a breaking point when it comes to boredom and being in home. In California, I don't know where it is in other areas, like the parks are full, like where the governor is literally shutting down parking lots and giving out tickets because people just, they can't stay home anymore. So it's, you know, I think when it comes to needs, and like people will travel again, right? Going back to the travel space, I know a lot of people that are attending this webinar within the travel space, like we need to position ourselves because it will happen, and it's just timing and staying relevant till it does.
You're right about that. And being in Minneapolis, where we got 6 inches of snow on Sunday, we still want to get outside too. We're cooped up. Yeah. You know, there are a couple more questions. One was around maintaining your voice and not being silent during this process. I think that's when you mentioned, you know, brands can't be silent. I think that's a great thing to talk about a little bit, because you think about, let's say, auto insurance, right? They're refunding percentages of premiums to people for the next couple months. That's huge, right? Says, look, we understand you're driving fewer miles, so we're going to refund you some of that. But then there's some oddly quiet brands out there, like Clear, for example. Clear is something that many of us in travel use and love. However, most of us aren't going to be traveling for a good 90-day, a good quarter of the year at a minimum. How come we're not hearing from some of those brands, do you think? Maybe not Clear specifically, but just in general, how come you think we're not hearing from brands?
Well, I think the simple answer to that is just fear, right? And not understanding where and how they fit into this, right? And so I think the natural reaction and inclination is just to take a step back and let it pass, and then come back when you're relevant again. And that's something that I really highly discourage, right? Because we need to be relevant. There was a study done by Kantar where, you know, looking at the 2008 recession, coming out of it, at the peak of that recession, there were really global brands that took a 6-month hiatus from digital marketing or just impression marketing in general. And those brands, when they, in hindsight, like looking back on it, those brands that took that hiatus took a 40% hit when it came to brand awareness when the economy recovered. So by not being present in times of need makes you not relevant when you're needed. So we have to stay relevant, and that's my point to loyalty is offering support and allegiance during this time is when they'll come back to you, when they want to think about your product, when they're ready to engage with you on a product level.
I think your points there are just killer valid, because it's just so important. The silence is it's worse than nothing. It's almost it's detrimental to some degree. You know, thinking about that, let's just pretend everything opened back up tomorrow and we could all move back to what becomes a new normal for us. Do you think there's any sort of lasting trauma effect for members? Is there any sort of and I don't mean to make light of this term, but PTSD or something like that in the loyalty space for members?
Absolutely. I think all of us can agree that life will not be the same. You know, it's going to be different, and the way we do business is going to be different. The way we engage as consumers is going to be different. I was just talking to a friend of mine who's in the food and beverage industry, and they're saying that the way we have social dining is going to change, right? The way we travel and engage, the way we fly, the way we stay at a hotel, all of those things are going to change. And how they're going to change is, you know, it's anyone's guess at this point. But to my point in my last slide is that the new normal is going to be set by us, right? As marketers, as companies and brands that really set the tone in everything that we're doing, we have to lead the pack in regards to how are we being socially responsible and reacting to that from a product level. And yeah, I think it's hard to say exactly what it's going to be, but the messaging always comes first, and the product will catch up to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I know some of the stuff we're doing with our clients across ICF Next. You know, we've got clients on both ends of the spectrum, right? Some that are doing really well in this environment, and some that are hurting more than anybody in this environment. And one message or planning item that's kind of consistent is that what was your third takeaway point, and that is consistency. You know, we can hear things. Some of us need to hear things 3, 4, 5, 6 times before it actually registers or sinks in, and other people pick it up right away. So I do appreciate the comment about consistency and the importance of reiterating what's going on, reassuring that I'm feeling comfortable, and reassuring I'm not losing out with you in your program, and that you'll be there for me when I'm able to get back on the road. Was there any other commentary around that consistency?
I guess the one thing to add to that is tone and voice. All of us, you know, whatever your brand represents, whatever the lifestyle it fits into, we need to maintain that tone of voice. We can't be everything to everyone. We all have a place within our hierarchy of needs, as well as the social setting. If your brand and tone is to be fun and engaging, maintain that somehow, that it serves a purpose and a need, right? If it's on a different vertical, maintain that as well. Don't jump around. Consistency also means that consistency in your tone and your voice and your messaging.
That's great. Well, as we wrap it up, just looking for any other questions that might be out there from folks on the call. We've had a number of them, and I try to address those. If not, Andy, any last thoughts?
Yeah, Tom, this is Chris from LSA. I got a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Andy. Sorry, can you hear me, Andy? Sorry, I got a question via email, Tom. This is Chris. I got a question. Can Andy please share his deck? So do you have any problem with that, Andy?
No problem. My contact information
You're not able to hear me.
So if you want to, whoever made that request, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'll be happy to share a copy of the deck with you.
Okay, Chris, did you want to share any what's kind of next on the calendar for LSA?
Oh yeah, so everyone that's on today, we'll send you an email afterwards and with the recording. So feel free to share that with your colleagues, and it will also have our next month's webinar, which is on loyalty fraud, and we have the loyalty expert Mark Ross Smith speaking with ICADA, and Mark is a great speaker. So I will send out the dates. It's in mid-May, And we have two times, so I won't. It's a little complicated since there's one for Asia and one for U.S. Europe. So I'll include it in the email to everyone here. So thank you, Tom.
That's great. Well, I'd like to thank you, Andy, and Do Good Points for joining us today and sharing this information. I think it's fantastic information at just the right time as we're all making up new normals for our members and our programs and trying to do good, if you will, for them. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Chris. I really appreciate everyone that attended.
Thank you, Andy. This is Chris, and I'm not using my camera because it's drawn to. There's too many kids streaming movies right now, and it goes slow. But I'd also like to thank you, Tom. So thanks for standing in and helping, since my cameras and my internet's a little bit weak with streaming children. I appreciated Tom, and I really appreciated Andy. So thanks to both of you.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for joining me this morning on the webinar, Doing Good Against COVID-19, where we discuss strategies in regards to loyalty marketing and how we can come out ahead of the curve post-COVID-19. I also want to thank you for just bearing with me as we had a few minutes of technical difficulties in the beginning. And I just thought it was really true to form in regards to the topic. It made me think of a quote by former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson, who said, "Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face." And to that testament, we made it out. I hope it added some value to your day and the marketing strategies and plans that you're working on within your company. Please feel free to reach out to me to discuss social impact marketing, as well as to explore partnership opportunities. We're trying to do as much good as possible, and I hope to do it together with you. And we're supporting a number of charity organizations that are on the frontline efforts against COVID-19, and I think we can do a lot of good together. Also, Chris from the Loyalty Association will be sending out the video in regards to the webinar that we shared today. I hope everyone is staying safe and finding a rhythm through all of the changes that's happening, and I look forward to connecting with you in the future. Thank you.